Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Tracy Shilshi. Now, just a week after his administration issued memos to crack down on illegal immigrants in the US, President Trump adopted a more conciliated tone during his first address to the US Congress. He said that he was open to immigration reforms, but it was possible only if both the Republicans and Democrats in the Congress were willing to compromise. Although he also said that US immigration should be based on a merit-based system rather than relying on low-skilled immigrants. Now, Trump's first month in office was dominated by a fight over his temporary travel ban on people from 7 Muslim-majority nations, repeated attacks on the news media, and of course harsh personal criticism of judges who blocked his immigration order. And these developments have of course kept foreign policy watchers on their toes, including those in India. So is a comparatively toned-down Trump good enough for India? Joining us on the debate today is an esteemed panel. We have former Ambassador Meera Shankar joining us here. We have Professor K.P. Vijayalakshmi, US Studies expert at SIS JNU. Also S.K. Sarkar, the executive member at the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, and T.K. Arun, editor of the opinion page at Economic Times. Ma'am, if I could start with you. Trump has, of course, delivered many surprising speeches, most of them, of course, very harsh, has been criticized quite a bit. But this one, like I just said, has been quite conciliatory, quite positive in a sense, hopefully even for some, who have been commenting on it. So is this change of stance, actual change in his policy stance, or, is this his way to just try and get a bit of sympathy from the Democrats?
Well, I think for the first time his speech appeared, more presidential than some of the speeches he's made in the past, which appeared to be off the cuff, many of them. This had been more carefully thought through. But it really touches all the same points that he has brought up as priorities during his presidential campaign. Now, with regard to immigration, which is the core topic you've touched on, he has said he's open to immigration reform, but and that the US should really look at a merit-based immigration system and move away from low-skilled immigration, and that immigration policy must serve the purpose of protecting American jobs, ensuring American security and the well-being of Americans. So this is very broad. We really don't know what it means in specific terms, because merit-based can mean, as some of the draft legislation has proposed, that you auction, for instance, H-1B visas or green cards to those who are getting the highest wages. Or it can mean that you, reduce family visas, that is for relatives of those who are there, and give visas to more highly skilled migrants. And then it's different, immigration is a different kettle of fish to allowing foreign workers under the H-1B or L-1 visa programs. So we really don't know how this is going to shape up. The early speculation that there may be a draft executive order in the works on the H-1B and L-1 visa programs has been belied so far, because it's really a law and it has to be chained through legislation. But there are 3 pieces of draft legislation in the Congress and the Senate which basically seek to do a number of things to make it more difficult for H-1B and L-1 visas to be issued to foreign skilled workers, including raising the minimum wage. One proposes from $60,000 to $100,000. The other proposes from $60,000 to $130,000. We really don't know how the legislation is going to shape up. And is this why what has happened is that with this, there is some time to actually have space for India and the Indian government and for Indian companies to make known that they are not really displacing American jobs. They are helping American companies to keep their competitiveness
Yes.
globally,
Yes.
and thereby ensuring that jobs stay in America and the companies are healthy and prosperous.
Yeah, we have Foreign Secretary S. Shankar, of course, currently in the US. He is, of course, meeting. He, in fact, met Paul Ryan as well, just a short while back. So, yes, that is, of course, India's approach, at least on the ground. In reality, that's what's happening. But is this why, Mr. Sarkar, India's response to whatever Trump has been saying or the administration comes out with, the response has been quite cautious? They're still waiting to see because there are no details that are coming out. I mean, it's just as if Trump is saying these things, but just as there is a lot of confusion within his own country in the US about these laws, even India is quite blind as far as, what he's actually planning to do. And is that why India is being cautious?
Well, it does appear so, because Trump, the candidate, and the Trump, the president, appear to be on the same, absolutely, they're on the same lines, same platform. And this speech of his, the conciliatory speech tone that he struck in the joint sitting of the Congress, had Ivanka's stamp all over it. If the hints which come from are the affordable child care and the paid family leave, which is also, which are Ivanka's very pet subjects. So that could be a reason, but I suppose we are cautious because we are not too sure as to whether this is going to be the new Trump that we are looking at, and it's quite possible that he may revert back to. I don't see him changing overnight. I mean, that's an issue which we have to consider all the time. As coming to the H-1B visas, yes, but there's as Meera Shankarji said, that 130,000 is a figure which is being talked about, which is a very large figure, a large salary or a large income in America. And if that is that becomes the benchmark, then Indians would have to be on their guard. But then Trump also says that he's actually looking at very high-skilled workers. And if I take you to the bans, which the 7 nations, now it's down to 6. If you look at those bans on the countries which have been named in the ban, none of the high-skilled workers come from Somalia and Yemen. So that's not really something which is going to affect America greatly as such. So that is, and then the Indians are also looking at EB-5 visas also, which is another area where Indians are also working at. So combined everything, I suppose India remains cautious in the sense that it is, we're not very sure, has it taken a definite direction or not? So we would obviously, time is something which we would like to be of a sense for the time being.
All right. TK Arun, one thing is quite clear that, when he does say hire Americans, buy Americans, American companies, I believe, have been told, you look at the American applicants first. And if you feel that they're not, they don't deserve to be in that, they don't have the merit for that particular job, then of course look at the migrants, look at the immigrants. And, if you think of it in that way, the Indians, of course, all go well, because if you look at it around, most of the ones who are working there are all college graduates. They're, of course, much more skilled, much more educated. So in those terms, if you look at it, there's not much of a scare for Indians working there. Do you agree?
Yeah. See, the basic point is that there is an absolute need for Indian talent, engineering talent in the US tech industry. The unemployment rate in the tech industry is less than 2% in the US. So they need people. So where are these people going to come from? Since they are not available in the US, they have to come from outside the US. And the biggest pool of engineers outside the US is in India. And Indians, let's remember that Obama also started off complaining about the Bangaluring of American jobs. But then gradually, as US tech industry lobbied hard with the government and made it understand that they require people, talent from outside the US to come in, that the model of global companies tapping global pools of capital, global pools of talent, and global pools of technology to create amazing new products and services and greatly profitable companies dawned upon the powers that be, then rules change, attitudes change. I don't see any reason why that shouldn't happen with the Trump administration either. So I am fairly optimistic that the current big hoo-ha over immigration will be relaxed. Now President Trump has only talked about this point-based immigration system as if he is talking about people who want to permanently shift to the US. What we are discussing, what India is primarily concerned about is what in the WTO jargon would be called mode 4 trade in services, where people have to travel across borders to deliver the service. So it's basically a trade in services issue on which India is pressing ahead for liberalization far beyond what is currently available. And I think if you press with this agenda and focus on seeing this as trade in services, then I'm sure we'll make more progress than we see it as, the right of people to migrate across borders and settle in foreign cultures. Then the politics becomes something else.
All right, you would like to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a point over here that whenever we talk about high skilled workers, Silicon Valley is what comes immediately to mind. But there are other areas also, like North Carolina's research triangle. Then you have the New Jersey Pharma Hub. So all these combined, I'm just naming these areas because these are not very popular as far as the viewers, maybe the viewers are concerned. But these are areas which will attract a lot of high-skilled workers all the time. And Indians will always have a role to play in all these areas. And Indians, of course, my feeling has always been that Indians are workers who really want to go up the ladder. And they would be very, very keen with the ambience being right. They would definitely like to work up themselves.
I have one comment on what you mentioned. This requirement that companies must first advertise the post and seek American workers, and only when they are not available can they look for foreign. This is an existing requirement under the H-1B program. All the companies have to put this up on their notice board, and only when they don't get an application these are the labor certification requirements that are there under the existing H-1B program. And the second thing which is important in connection with what Mr. T.K. Arun said is that trade in services between India and the US is broadly balanced. Mostly Americans feel that India has a huge surplus in trade in services with the Americans, and I'm going by American figures, most years it's been balanced. Some years America has been ahead, some years India has been marginally ahead, but broadly trade in services is balanced, because if India exports IT and software services, then the US exports consultancy, financial, educational, advertising, all kinds of services which India imports from the US.
So why, Professor, is it is it that India is just getting caught up in this whole global fervor of the Trump phenomenon, and everyone is just worried about how the US is going to shape up, shape the kind of shape it's going to eventually take, which is of course not a very bright one, at least for liberals, and is India getting caught up in that? Because by the looks of it, it seems that things are going okay. And as far as foreign policy goes, as far as immigration policy goes, it's not like even the Obama, or for that matter, even the Bush administration had anything concrete. They didn't have, they didn't make any new rules in that sense, as far as immigration is concerned, isn't it?
Which affects India. Yeah, well, let me start by saying that this speech of Mr. Trump is being touted of as a kind of State of the Union speech. And by definition, it is mostly domestic, I would say, and foreign policy is rightfully in a much broader level and not many specifics. And you've already commented on the conciliatory tone, and I think when you say domestic, you understand a lot more than just merely saying political or liberal or conservative, because this is a conceptual framework that allows you to understand who he's speaking to, with whom he's trying to make a certain amount of headway, and what are the headwinds he has faced and how that's changed him. All of that comes into that rubric. Now, in terms of why India is in this and so on. Now, very clearly, our panel has actually established that immigration and H-1B visa, they're two separate issues.
Yes.
But in the campaign rhetoric of Mr. Trump, immigration and terrorism were closely linked. And I think that has created a kind of environment in which we may see all kinds of people who are living in the US who are not exactly, you know, the color
Yes.
that must be white or anything, do find fear. Now, we have had one killing. And I think the government of India, you know, before this administration formally took over, it was very clear, and every public domain would mention how 50-odd dialogues were going on between India and the United States, and there's a transformed strategic relationship, you know, and 50-odd dialogues in various sectors. So it was a multifaceted engagement. So clearly that was not going to come to an end in any case, in that sense. So what was this? This is, I think, about, you know, Government of India making a case that, look, at least condemn it immediately. And that was done. So clearly the conversations are going on addressing the socio-cultural impact of a strongly worded immigration equals terrorism equals others.
Yes.
You know, that problem. The second problem has been about the politics of immigration. While there has been no real person would actually be opposed to countries securing their borders or opposing illegal immigration. But what has been interesting is that before he went to the Congress, Mr. Trump actually made a speech on Tuesday in Fox, I think, where he actually threw what we would call a googly and what they call a curveball, by saying that he's going to actually look for immigration reform by legalizing illegal immigrants, which he swore that, you know, was the problem earlier. Now, this, you know, the majority leader, Senator McConnell, actually said, well, I hope he tells us next time, you know, before he says it, because even they were not prepared. But what they're all saying now is scrambling and saying that let's do the borders first and then come to compromise. But this is a new direction. So even domestically or even other levels of immigration from Mexico and others, though he has insisted on the wall, I think this is interesting because he is talking about reform in a format that was already practiced earlier. So to that extent, I'm seeing some amount of continuity. But the problem of the politics of immigration plus terrorism plus taking away my jobs, that is what we need to understand, because the economics is very clear. It doesn't really seem like as if something, but you know, political behavior and political decisions can actually defy economic logic. You know, and think of it, and I just want to mention two anecdotes, I mean, anecdotal evidence that I've seen. One was this Kansas shooting and the outpouring of both love, affection and support that killing invoked in rest of the Indian-American community and the Americans and particularly the tech community, all of that. At the same time, much less reported has been other, you know, problems. One was a lady in Maryland who said she's a 30 years resident there, but she was asked difficult questions. She was asked to come down to the station, you know, just because she looked different. Then there is one incident in South Colorado, Peyton, maybe Peyton Place, I don't know, Peyton probably. It says that there was an Indian home, defaced and racial slurs, all of it. And of course he has come out, the owner has said that the neighbors got together and helped him clean it up and so on. So you are seeing an America which is in search of its soul. But what, then I come to the final point of immigrants and skilled immigrants. America, you know, began with, you know, we welcome your huddled masses and the teeming poor, that you wretched that you cast ashore. Today, if you only say, now, Mr. Trump has also clarified, or he's clearly said, that these people should be able to financially support themselves, you know, those immigrants who come. So, is this then going to be a different kind of immigration then? Merit-based system is one clue we have, and that would probably follow certain things. But what does this mean when you say financially they have to support themselves, immigrants? How do they do that?
All
You know,
right.
what kind of
Is
things?
this,
So I think
is
these
this
are,
why, Mr. Sarkar?
no, they will be political.
All
I
right.
would
Is
say.
this why even a company like an Infosys or TCS, despite the fact that, you know, as far as trade's concerned, things are looking strong, nothing really has been said specifically about H-1B visas. So far, whenever he's spoken, he has spoken about immigration and he's spoken in terms of terrorism to a large extent, in terms of, you know, a threat to the safety of the country. But is this why they feel, I mean, there's a feeling that politics is eventually going to take over specific decisions of the industry as well, and that is why Infosys, TCS, you even have a NASCOM here, who haven't responded at all, you know, positively at all to any of these developments, or for that matter have not even responded at all. They're still watching and waiting.
I don't think you can ever segregate politics and economics. They will have to work together at all times. And if you look at the American history, America was at one stage, let's say from World War II onwards, when FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, got America into the war, they wanted to build up a model which was to be emulated by the rest of the world. It was exceptionalism, as they called it. Trump, unfortunately, when he started off, was fairly aggressive. I don't know whether he'll remain in that. And if you look at his defense budgets now, it's already 600 billion which the country spends. He wants to add another 50 billion to that. So he's at the cost of non-defense budgets. Now, when he's doing that, so obviously his focus is going to be on the fact that I am powerful, you need to fear me.
Yeah.
So when you build up that kind of an image, so then that is an area where things could be a little different from what America has been all along. It's not the model that everybody would like to emulate all the time. So that is something which could be a fear, which is, I think, something which will always be at the back of the mind of other nations all the time. And Trump, unfortunately, in foreign countries is very, very unpopular. I mean, if you were to hold the elections not in America but in the foreign countries, Hillary would have won hands down. I mean, I'm very sure of that.
Yeah.
So that being the situation, he needs to correct himself, because after all, America is the only superpower that we have in this world. And if that be so, I think he's being asked to definitely tone down his, and his daughter Ivanka is definitely helping him in that respect. So politics will always play a role in what happens, but Infosys, TCS and would not be too bothered about what's happening, because we corner most of the H-1B visas, so which is 65,000 plus 20,000 if you've done your postgraduate courses from an American university.
Yeah.
So they're not really bothered about that aspect, and they're very fairly well trenched in that country.
Yeah.
And plus they have spread their wings quite a bit. I mean, in Europe they are they have a fairly large presence. Now they're going to Southeast Asia, Australia, and all these places. So they are pretty in a decent space.
All right, all right. Massive man, yeah.
I wanted to also draw attention to the fact, I think 2-3 other things in the speech, because we're talking of immigration and a more conciliatory approach on immigration, and then at the same time, in the same speech, Mr. Trump talks of setting up a special unit in Homeland Security to help the victims of immigrant crime. I mean, to help the victims of crime is one thing, but of immigrant crime, where again you're really linking immigration with drugs, with killings, with murder, with terrorism and so on. So on the one hand there's a conciliatory approach, and on the other hand there's more of the same trope.
Yes.
Otherwise, of course, the interesting thing is that he's talked of, economically, he's talked of tax reform, again without details, but saying that he will substantially reduce corporate taxes so that American companies can be competitive and need not go overseas. And he has talked of reducing taxes for the middle class. He has talked of increasing defense expenditure and outlays on internal security as well.
Yes.
The freeze on employment of government, new government employees will not apply to defense and customs and so on, border security. And then he has talked of $1 trillion infrastructure investment to build roads, railways, bridges, again with not much detail.
Yeah.
But in the past, he has talked of $137 billion in tax cuts, which will enable private sector companies
Yeah.
to fund this infrastructure. Now, I think that if some of these measures,
Yeah.
if they are able to get going, for instance, the infrastructure investment.
Yeah, I'm running short of time now.
Sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Then the economy could turn around.
Okay.
And then you would see protectionist sentiments ease
Yes.
a bit.
Okay.
But if it doesn't, then you could see it aggravate.
All right.
Just one last
yes.
point I want to make. You know, the thing is, while all this is going on, we, I think, also ought to keep our eye on the narratives that are going on inside the United States. In as much as the harsher lines, I mean, his core lines, he holds them to be fairly, you know, his mission.
Yes.
So he hasn't changed that. And I think, though, the opposition to his narrative is also available in the United States. So that's a point which is making it very interesting.
Okay.
For most of
Take Arun,
us.
very quickly, last question to you. You know, many are of the opinion that any drastic reform as far as immigration is concerned vis-a-vis India is going to be quite difficult for Trump. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that. So because I said the number of people who are of an age group
Yes.
who are in a position to study engineering or applied sciences, this is very limited in the world, and most of them are in India. So Indian talent will be required by American companies, whether in the US or outside. Whether those jobs will be created in the US and pay taxes to the US government, or they will be located in other jurisdictions and pay tax elsewhere,
Yes.
is for the US to decide. So I don't think there is any great danger, threat to the talent, Indian talent finding deployment and jobs and incomes. So that's not a big issue at all. The real danger is actually what Vijayalakshmi raised. This is about the politics, which is inimical to the basic dynamic of a globalized way of doing business, globalized way of living, of cultures intermingling, of having tolerance for diversity,
Yes.
and you're accepting that people can be diverse and still interact with one another productively.
Absolutely.
That politics is what is actually missing.
One small point, if I'm allowed to
Very
make.
quickly, yes.
Yeah, very quickly. See, America by itself is a land of immigrants, 330 million immigrants. Now, America has always opened its doors to high-skilled workers in whatever fields which are possible. America is a very business-minded, a very commercially-minded nation.
yeah.
So it will never be able to close those doors
Yeah.
ever for
But
all the
the
immigrants.
worry is when you have a president who speaks with such strong undertones of fear towards
Yes.
the immigrant community,
Yes.
you know, what kind of an effect does that have on Americans?
But
And
the
that's-
corporate world is bound to put some pressure on him at some stage
We
or the
hope
other.
so, we
Yeah.
hope so. And I'm
so.
sorry, but that's about the time I have. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Professor and Mr. Sarkar and T.K. Arun for joining me on this discussion here on The Big Picture. We'll see you again with another topic, but for the moment, that's it. Thank you.